This is SOUQ Business Landscape.
A very good morning to you this Monday morning, and welcome to SOUQ Business Landscape, your weekly compass through evolving marketplace of ideas, enterprise, and economic power. Here, we decode the pulse of local and global markets, from government policies to shaping business growth to industry innovations, driving productivity and development. Each week, we spotlight the intersection between policy and profit and people, unpacking how fiscal reforms, trade dynamics, and investment decisions are redefining business opportunities across Nigeria and beyond, whether it's housing, agriculture, trade, or finance. SOUQ Business Landscape connects the dots, turning data into insight and insight into direction. Welcome once again this Monday morning. I am Oyin Priya Krumale. Good morning to you, Lumide.
Good morning, Priya. Good morning. It's a brand new week. They say if Monday does not get you excited, like I always say, change your job. Welcome to SOUQ Business Landscape.
Well, we are not alone. We're talking about dollars. We have Amin Mukhtar, who's joining us from the United States. Good morning to you. Amin, are you there?
Good morning, sir.
Let's jump into our first story. The Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, NIQS, has raised alarm over widespread corruption in Nigeria's housing and financial sectors, warning that it is severely weakening the mortgage system and pushing home ownership out of reach for many citizens. Speaking at a press briefing in Lagos to mark the Institute's Golden Jubilee, the General Secretary, Aziz Ayodabo, said the federal government must urgently review and reform mortgage policies to address systemic corruption and inefficiencies. Ayodabo noted that despite various housing schemes and financial interventions, a majority of Nigerians still struggle to access affordable mortgage financing. He emphasized that without decisive action to clean up the system and implement transparent processes, the dream of owning a home will remain elusive for millions. He called for stronger regulatory oversight and collaboration between public and private stakeholders to rebuild trust and improve accessibility in Nigeria's mortgage framework. First of all, I have come across Olumide and Mr. Mukhtar. The Nigerian mortgage system, I don't think this is a recent development. It had been like this for the past 2 decades. And for those who are at the lower echelon of the Nigerian civil service, either at the subnational level or the federal government, cannot build a house after spending 35 years or 30 years. I don't think they can do that through the Nigerian mortgage system, because very few people, and there are litany of examples, and my perspective is coming from a lot of civil service that I've met who have spent that number of years that I mentioned, and the way and manner they came about owning their own houses was without the input of the any mortgage bank in Nigeria. And when they did it through association, some of them, in fact, a very reliable case is a vast land somewhere in Mowe Ibafo. And these were lands that were bought by association of academic and non-academic staffs in universities here in Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes.
And they bought those vast land from the community. Then they distribute it to the members in the association, who can pay a certain amount of money within a specific period of time, so that by the time they are almost done serving the government, whether 35 years, 10 years to the end, or some of them who have other sources of income, they are able to pay for the land and build. They did that without any mortgage assistance from contribution they made, and from that cooperative, they were able to build their own houses. And when you look at the houses that were built, you know that there's complete absence of government support. And when you look at the quality, you know that there are complete absence of government support or from institutional backing like the mortgage system. And you begin to ask yourself, we need to make the civil service an attractive place for young minds who are leaving the school system to work, because these are brains that are in tune with current development and the current technology that is at work in the space. Not only that, those in the private sector, maybe they use mortgage systems. And if they were able to do that, it had become a privilege for those who are at the top echelon, those who can afford it, those who are rich. Because if you look at those who are at the grassroots level, who do not earn lots of money, and they want to own their own houses, they can't even pay their mortgage. And if by luck or by chance they were able to erect their own building before they retire from work, because when they retire, they've spent all their productive years working either for the government or in the private sector. And it is very, very good and ideal that they have a home to retire to. If they do not have a home to retire to, it's going to be disastrous at that elderly or old age to be paying rent. Now, in the case where they are unable to do that, they resort to seeking help from their children, who might just be starting or in their mid-20s and have a lot of responsibilities on their table to develop and build their family. So as a young man of 25 or in late 20s, early 30s, your responsibility in Nigeria, sometimes it goes across to your younger ones, your community, especially your elderly parents. So, and if we do not take care of this, the ripple effects is way beyond more than we can calculate.
All right, so let's address what's lacking here. You've rightly mentioned a whole lot, corruption and transparency. I'm glad that the NIQS are coming out, to make this statement known and make it public, because when you look at allocation of housing units and mortgage funds, it often goes to the wrong recipients. I mean, there is access inequality. That is basically mortgage schemes benefit higher income and politically connected people. Another problem is weak mortgage infrastructure. It's sometimes rudimentary. Institutions may not even have long-term funding. And let's also look at Lagos State, for instance. Now, you're talking about just the civil service. And we all know that the civil service cannot even cater for all Nigerians. They can only employ a fraction of the population. So which means just a fraction might benefit from what we call this mortgage. And the private sector now seeking mortgage, the terms might be even higher than how you would request for it in the civil service. You might have some certain incentives, some certain
housing
allowances and all that. What is the cost of building a house these days, and where? Different locations bring about different money. You and I were here when one of our colleagues was saying he has a property to sell of $25 million. And I shouted $25 million in Victoria Island. Now let's take away Victoria Island. Let's say in the axis of the Kurudus, the
very cheap in the Kurudu area.
Yes. We're not even coming to the island. Let's leave the island for the upper middle class and the higher class. I'm talking about the average citizen, probably in the Kurudus and all that. Now, you want to access, buy a house, buy a property. Probably, if you negotiate well, you might get it for 20 to 30 million. I'm talking of just maybe 2-bedroom bungalow, something like that. How long is it going to now take you? You have 30 years. That's if you're in the civil service. You have 30 years or 35 years. 30 years or before you become 60, whichever comes first. So let's say 30 years to pay that, which means if you get a house of maybe 20 million or 30 million, you have to be paying
a million naira,
assuming that you started the first year you got employed. Now, assuming in a year you're able to make maybe 300,000, you can kick back or save 100,000, and in a year you have about 1.2. That is for a single man with no responsibility, no wife, no family. So I'm trying to explain some of the things that might negate people even accessing mortgages, because when you think about your responsibilities you have, you now begin to wonder that how is it even possible? That's why a lot of people resort to illegal means of getting, bribery, corruptions and all that, because they want to make a lot of money so that they can take care of their family, they can build houses, they can do so many things. So I remember if a relative of mine, she was working in the civil service and they allocated an apartment to her. And at a point, the apartment was up for sale for about 6 million. Now, at that point, she did not have 6 million. She had to go and borrow. No, she had to sell her car, first of all. And she had to borrow money to raise that initial 2 million. Then the 4 million would be spread. So that was how she was able to get it. But it was not easy.
She was
at a point.
6 million?
Yes.
When was that?
This is years back. At a point, she wanted to sell the property. She got someone. Now, she got someone in the ministry who said, okay, I am going to bring someone to buy this apartment, but the amount I sell it belongs to me. So if, for instance, you are selling it 20 million and I sell it 50 million, I'm only giving you
your 20 million.
And you will state it there.
In the agreement.
Yes, in the agreement. So she backed out. So these are some of the things but luckily now, mortgages, where I'm going to is federal mortgages, they do actually do work, because at a point she now ran to the mortgage bank and they came in and they were able to offset that 4 million and they were now deducting it from her salary. So this is a rare case of someone who was just she said, yeah, it was grace and and all that. So so I'm saying that it's not as if it doesn't work. It works. But how many people have been lucky to get this kind of financial help? So I think that, first of all, I'm not looking at the federal government this time around. I'm looking at the state government, because just like you rightly said in your introduction, the federal government, we've increased in our allocation, the subnationals are getting more money. So they should be looking into affordable housing. Partner with the private sector. We have so many land developers all around the place. We have joint ventures. We have people who are doing joint venture right now is what is even people are doing now, whereby you acquire a land from the owner, you strike an agreement, you develop it, and you let it out. You can so federal government, or rather state government, can partner with developers. Let's look for low-cost housing. If it's a 1-bedroom flat, 2-bedroom flat, not something too fancy, not a luxury suite, like they always say, just something simple, moderate, that if people can, access, then you spread it out. I think that
within a specific period. Yes, Mukhtar, we're coming to you, and your perspective of what you know concerning about the mortgage system in Nigeria, and probably can equally make comparisons like you normally do with advanced climes and some of the policy direction that we can also adopt here to make it a smooth process for anyone who have maybe even the preliminary, who can meet the preliminary conditions to go into that process so they can have houses when they are done expending their productive years working for either the private sector or the civil service.
Okay, thank you very much. So, first, the mortgage system is a borrowed system from the Western world. And the basis, something that we usually miss as a people is, for example, in the advanced world now, the mortgage bank, they ask you for your household income. So for things like this, they don't expect you as a single man to want to buy a house, except if you are in certain fields, like you're a medical doctor or a lawyer, this high-paying profession. But if you're a regular person, like a civil servant, they ask you for your household income because they expect that you have a partner and you pull your income together, right? The Western world, the system works because it's designed in such a way that nobody makes too much money. Everybody just make enough money to get by, right? So normally, an average person will not be able to get a mortgage by himself, except he has a partner and they put their income together. So the mortgage bank will ask you, what is your household income? That means, what's your paycheck with you and your partner? And that's how you qualify for mortgage. They look at your income, then they ask you to put down, 5%, 10%. In America, the way the government has been able to come in is to now say, okay, if you are a first home buyer, instead of putting down 10% of the value of the house that you want to buy, we will guarantee your loan by allowing you to put down 3%. That means we'll tell the bank that is guaranteeing giving you the loan to say, take 3% from this person. If the default will come in a way to cover it, because the reason why the financial house is asking you for 10% is to be sure that you are financially capable to carry on the loan for 30 years, for the term that you are taking it. So it's like a criteria, and it's for you to contribute to be sure that you can afford what you are trying to buy. So you are trying to buy a 100 million naira house, for example, bring 10 million so that we know that you are not going outside of your power. And then they want to see your household income. So they want to see what you are earning, and then they look at the viability of your employment to be able to pay for the rest of your time. But if we bring it back in Nigeria now, our culture does not really support family putting resources together in that manner. Everybody, husband and wife, they do their things separately. Most families in Nigeria, they might be living together, but if you look at the documents of their house, it's usually the man's name alone. And then maybe if the woman has a property, it's going to be in her own name too. So we love to say we are big on family, but maybe we are not big on trust. Not too many families will you find husband and wife investing together in this part of the world. And that is hindering us in mortgage, I tell you for free, because it is a business. And when it is a business, they have to look at the viability of getting their money back. It's a loan. It's like, we'll pay for the house in advance, then you be paying back the money to us, and the house is your collateral. So when you default, we can sell the house and get our money back. But it is even stressful to start looking for buyer when you default. So they don't want you to default. So they prefer when they see payment slip from two people rather than one person. So the husband is earning this, the wife is earning this. So they look at it that, okay, so even along the line, if one of you lose their job, the other person can carry on the mortgage, while whoever lost their job can catch up later. So these are some of the things that we need to look at, why mortgage works better in the Western country. A large percentage of the mortgage loan in advanced country is usually for household, two people, husband and wife. Is usually that, not on rare occasion is it a one person that is taking mortgage. Now, the second problem that we have is high interest rates. In Nigeria, the mortgage interest is between 20% to 30%, which is the normal interest that commercial banks give loan for other things too. And it is understandable because the bank is running on investment mostly from diaspora. They are running their business with dollars from, investors in abroad. So the higher the risk, the higher the interest. So if you want to get a foreign investor to come and invest, and he sees how unstable our currency is, how unstable the economy is, you have to guarantee him a higher return on investment because the risk is higher. So that is the reason why the money market in Nigeria is so expensive, giving out loan. Okay. Because we know, so they are telling their investors, oh, bring this dollar. And the bank that is doing the business, they know the value of the naira can drop at any time. So if you are not charging enough interest to be able to give your investor return on investment, they won't bring their money to Nigeria because the investment will not be attractive to them. Now, we're talking about government building low-cost housing.
Yes.
Not only that, yes, government needs to do that. I remember a few weeks ago on this program, we talked about it. And I say part of the problem that we have in Lagos, which is transportation and high traffic, is because in high-brow areas like VI, Ikoyi, they are not low-income housing. And I argue that New York is the financial capital of America. And in the high-brow areas, the richest neighborhood, government still puts low-cost housing, low-income housing for people to live. So they don't have to be traveling from one part of the city to another. Lagos State has development all over Lagos, in VI, in Lekki as well. But all their developments are for the rich people. They overlook the low-income people. Government is not supposed to segregate. So you don't necessarily need to sell these houses to these people. Build 2,000, 3,000 units and rent to people, because VI is the commercial center of Lagos, right? But you have low-income people that oil that commercial sector. You have people that are security, that are drivers. The wealthy people cannot live alone without these people. So you have to make provisions for them, so they don't have to travel 2 hours back and forth. So government needs to do that, because if government build low-cost housing and they are to sell, no matter how cheap it is, everybody cannot be able to afford. So you have to do low-cost housing where people just rent directly from the government at cheap prices, and they qualify by their pay slip that show that they are low-income earners.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar. Now, before we leave this conversation about housing and the mortgage system in Nigeria, let's briefly touch on creating awareness. In fact, one thing I know is that whenever you are changing jobs or you got employed in a new company, you're leaving your job to another job, one thing that you see is that most times you see bankers, either they are coming to you to try to sell some of their products, why you need to have your salary account with them, why you need to change your insurance, your pension account from the pension fund administrator, from one pension fund administrator to another pension fund administrator. Insurance companies are coming to sell. HMOs are equally coming to sell, and it's almost a beehive of activities. But one thing you never see, it's the mortgage banks. They don't come to sell their products. And I wonder why that seemed to be the problem. I wonder why that seemed to be the process, because most times it's as if Nigerians they are not aware. And if you look at the list, apart from the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria that seemed to be bailing the cat, or that is the colossus in that area, we have a litany, lots of other mortgage banks in there, but Olumide, we don't see them to even advertorials on television, on radio. They are very, very rare. And we won't begin to ask the question and to question their existence, even though we see them on paper.
Well, just like Mukhtar said, how many people he said that for you to access this mortgage bank, they are going to ask you to bring 10%. They are going to check your financial capability,
Your household income.
Your household income, to know whether you are actually viable, whether you can actually sufficiently pay these things. So if they do not see those things, I mean, no bank would want to offer you that kind of...
They have to let people know they exist first. Probably they feel you should come to them. They are not to come to you.
Then again, I want to go to the private. I believe that the private sector can also, yes, it's quite... We are living in tough times, but I feel for the private sector, private individual who employs, this kind of opportunity should be available to his or her employees, not just. If you do an investigation now, how many of these private private organizations have HMO? How many of them have pension? Not to now talk of mortgages, but these are some of the benefits that an employee should actually enjoy, so that when the employee is being poached by another organization, there are certain things employees think before leaving a particular organization, the benefits that they enjoy. These are some of the things that make them stick back. When an employee knows that he has an obligation to fulfill some sort of like a mortgage, he will think twice before leaving that organization, because he knows that this organization has been there for me when in my time of need. Some organizations, they provide temporary accommodations for their employees. It's not their own, but they just make sure that there's a place, an apartment where they can lay their head and all that. So I believe that they can also go further. They might start with maybe 5 million, 10 million, thereabout, because I mean, it's not all private individuals can afford to provide houses for each of their employees. So I understand that part. So, but all I'm saying is that they can also partner with this mortgage bank. They can partner with other developers, like Mukhtar said. Let's look for a low-cost housing, like that of, yes, now it's no more a low-cost housing. I'm talking about 1004. If you can have something like that replicated, whereby a building, a sky-rise of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, affordable. You can even do rent to own. That's another opportunity. That's another avenue. Rent to own. You are paying rent and you are also putting a down payment down to own it. In advanced countries, what people do, a friend of mine, what he did was he got a mortgage, he got a house, and rented some part of that apartment out. Now, the rent is going to take care of his mortgage. So he doesn't have to even lift a finger. Some people even do short let. Well, it depends on what you agree with and all that. So there are so many avenues that people can actually do. We can do rent to own. We can do mortgages. Let the mortgage banks, let them come up with different things that are people focused, that will meet the average citizen, not the elite. Not people who will bring it. Because, I mean, if I want to purchase a house of 50 million and you're asking me to bring 10%, that's 5 million. How much am I earning to be able to save up 5 million initial deposit before I can now continue to pay the rest? I mean, we have to also be realistic.